And welcome back to another edition of the I Prefer the 80s and 90s Sports Podcast, an editorial slash podcast where I essentially talk to you about why I, Richard Harris, prefer the sports of the 80s and 90s to the sports of today. Today's topic we're going to talk quickly about is the business. It's the hype machine. It is sports. Last night, the New York Jets, the most talked about team in the offseason, preseason, they were on Hard Knocks, played their first game. And everybody who is a Jet fan, football fan, tuned in to see what Aaron Rodgers could do against the Buffalo Bills, the team that has ruled the roost of the East for the last 3 or 4 years since Tommy went to Tampa. And now Tommy's out of the league. And 4 plays into the game, network television collapsed. The game was so big that there was more people at that Jet Buffalo Bill game than was at the Super Bowl that year that was held in that stadium. Isn't that insane? More people at that game last night than was at a Super Bowl held at the stadium. Now, granted, the Super Bowl is cold, but it's still a Super Bowl. And they all were there to watch Aaron Rodgers do his magic, and 4 plays in, it was like a Giant game all over again because the Giants couldn't protect. And neither could the Jets. 3 of the first 4 plays of the game, he was hit. And I'm not here to criticize the Jets. I'm not here to criticize anybody. I'm just saying the hype surrounding this game was like it was the Super Bowl, and it's only week 1. In the 80s and 90s, were there hype machines? I think about that for a little bit because it's funny how the sports world has changed. People who are my age, we used to get mad at the media because the media would criticize Deion Sanders for celebrating, would criticize Ken Griffey Jr. for posing, watching a home run go over the wall. Barry Bonds for doing a twirl one time when he had a home run against the Dodgers. We got mad at the media for criticizing that because we were like, we want players to have fun. Now here I am today saying that maybe those guys in the media back in the day was right. Because we spent the whole offseason talking about the Jets, talking about Lamar Jackson, and they didn't win the Super Bowl last year. We spent the whole off season talking about everybody but the Super Bowl champion Chiefs, who ends up losing their first game. On that wonderful Seinfeld episode, when Elaine gives George grief and says, "To the victor goes the spoils." That's not the case in sports journalism, and that's not the case unless the victor is super scintillating and spectacular. Now, Mahomes is. But they don't talk about Mahomes. They talk about everybody else but Mahomes. They don't talk about the Eagles, who are good. They don't talk about the Chargers. They don't talk about how the Rams are trying to regain what they lost. They don't talk about none of that. They spent the whole offseason talking about running backs, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson. Talked a little bit about Tua. Everyone counts Miami out. Because they say when Tua gets hurt, it's going to be different. But it's funny because they don't talk about that way with the 49ers. The 49ers' best players every year get hurt. Every year, without fail, 49 players, Bosa, quarterback, running back, Ayuk, Debo, they go down for like a few weeks. Christian McCaffrey. What did I say? Every time the voice starts to crack, that means I'm telling the truth. In the 80s and 90s, did we show love to the victor? Heck yeah. The University of Miami's football team was so popular that, 20 years later, they did a ESPN documentary on it, like, 4 episodes? Not 4 episodes, like 3 different seasons of it. Everyone is still sitting in awe that Charlie Ward was so good at football that he chose basketball. Charlie Ward wasn't praised. The funniest thing is Deion. Deion was self-made in the sense that Deion popularity started when he was on the field and supposedly he was yelling at the Clemson sideline telling him that he's going to take the punt back for a touchdown, and he did. And his legend grew. It wasn't because of the media. It's because of him. Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson very rarely spoke because of his speech impediment, but more hype about Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson didn't hype himself. But today, since there's 900,000 podcasts, 950,000 people doing their own shows, and 950,000 shows on TV, everybody talks about everything. And then all of a sudden, what happens if it don't happen? We just had tennis, US Open final. Everyone, Alcaraz is going to definitely get to the finals. He's going to definitely get there. He's the baddest man on the planet. Can't nobody stop Alcaraz. Alcaraz, Alcaraz. Sis boom ba. Carlito. And then Medvedev beat him. Aaron Rodgers gets hurt 4 plays into the season. Shohei. It's Shohei's the MVP of the league. He might take Judge's record of American League home runs 62. It is all about Shohei Ohtani. And Shohei hurts his elbow. Shohei hasn't played now in 9 straight games. Shohei's people, nah, we ain't let y'all touch his elbow. He going back to Japan to get that surgery. We don't trust the American surgeons here. Shohei gets hurt. You don't talk about Shohei. The hype machine. The 85,000 sports shows. What I find funny is last basketball season, the NBA was like, we got to put the Lakers on as much as we put the champion Warriors on. Just got to do it. Even though they're coming off a bad year, we're just going to do it. And they did. And Charles Barkley used to say, why in the world are the Lakers on again? Why is the Lakers on again? Do we got to talk about the Lakers again? And he was right. The NFL thinks it's got it right now, where they're like, all right, late in the season, if we got a football game that don't mean nothing, we can flex it out and put in the Chiefs Chargers in its place because that's going to mean more. Or the Bills Jets rematch going to mean more. But not nobody else. Tonight, we are in mid-September almost. TBS, instead of putting on a competitive Texas versus Toronto series, which is important because they're both trying to get that wild card, they bring Bob Costas out. I'm going to say, Bobby, you're going to do the Yankees or the Red Sox. The Yankees are, well, after the doubleheader, they could be 1 game over 500. And Boston is a couple more games over 500, but they're in a dire situation. They're not going to They need to go pretty much undefeated rest of the season and beat the teams that are in front of them. But because it's the Yankees and the Red Sox, TBS has to put it on. It don't make no sense. In the 80s and 90s, yeah, rivalries mattered. Yeah, things mattered, but common sense mattered. Because they put on television what we really wanted to see. And now it's a what do you do if situation. What would have TNT and TBS did last season in the basketball year had the Lakers stunk during the regular season, which they did, only got hot in the playoffs. And now what are they going to do that Aaron Rodgers is gone? I don't know exactly what the quote is. Don't put the horse before the cart, or don't put the cart before the horse. But that's what this generation does. Don't put the cart before the horse. Because if you do, you look stupid. Because then you're going to go backwards. That's just my opinion. I'm Richard Harris. Have a good night.